Summer in a mason jar. Welcome to the Front Porch Lessons with me, Mark Morgan. We're here to slow down a few minutes and remember the way things used to be and see if these simpler times still have something to teach us today. Pour yourself a cup of coffee, pull yourself up a chair and sit with me a while. You know what? I've been thinking about gardens here lately. This time of year, gardens are starting to give up what folks worked all summer to grow. And when I was a kid, when the garden started coming in good, you know what was about to happen? We started canning. I'm telling you, we can just about everything. Green beans, tomatoes, pickles, peppers, soup, blackberries, you named it, we canned it. Somebody down the road would come over, and before you know it, these jars would come out. Folks would hold them up looking at the light and like they were showing off a diamond ring. As a kid, I really didn't understand what the big deal was. It was just a jar of green beans. Looking back now, I kind of understand. Somebody had planted those beans, tended them, picked them, snapped them, cleaned them, and put them up. That jar represented a whole ton of work, you know it? And come wintertime, it represented supper. I still remember that homemade vegetable soup. I don't know if I was just starving to death or if soup really was that good. But man, I can still taste it to this day. It seemed like half the garden went into that jar of soup, tomatoes, green beans, corn, bell peppers, whatever the garden had gave us. You know, we just put it in that jar, I guess. Then months later, you know, when it got cold outside, the garden was just long gone. You'd open one of them jars and heat it up. I'm telling you, you couldn't have taken me to one of the fanciest restaurants in town and fed me anything that tasted better than that on a cold winter day. Then there was them blackberries. Woo, they came with a price. You'd go out there and start picking them, and by the time you got home, you done had scratches up and down your arm and you know, enough chigger bites to keep you scratching for a week. Well, but then came winter. You opened one of those jars of jelly, and somehow you forgot all about them scratches on that homemade biscuit you was eating that jelly with. Them scratches was a thing in the past, and them chiggers was done gone. Then there was chow-chow. You know, you'd get a big old bowl of pinto beans and some homemade chow-chow, some hot peppers with it, add some fried potatoes and onions, and maybe a big old slice of cornbread. Woo, that was larrapin'. You could keep your steak dinner at that time. You know, you can't hardly beat that meal. We had sauerkraut made in one of those big old crocks too. As a kid, I thought it was some kind of magic. You put all that cabbage in there, you wait a while, and somehow sauerkraut just appeared. That was magic as far as I'm concerned. And those homemade pickles, golly, those suckers were good. You know, some were sliced for sandwiches, some were sliced in spears. The truth is, I didn't eat a sandwich. I just eat those things right out of the jar. But there was something else I remember about those gardens. They didn't always give you everything you wanted. Maybe the dill wasn't good that year. Maybe the peppers didn't make it. Maybe the weather got something. The bugs got something. And whatever the reason, sometimes something you were counting on just wasn't in that garden. You know what? You made it do. You made do with what you had. Maybe the soup tasted a little different that year. You know, maybe you didn't put up as many pickles as you wanted to. Maybe you didn't throw away the whole harvest because one thing didn't grow. You appreciated what you did and what you got. You know, I didn't realize it back then, but I think there's a pretty good lesson hiding behind all those mason jars. You couldn't rush any of it. You couldn't plant a seed today and demand a tomato tomorrow. You planted, you tended, you waited. And when the harvest finally came, you didn't waste it just because you had plenty. You did the work to preserve some of it for later. and you had to respect the process. Canning wasn't something where you could just take shortcuts and hope for the best. You know what? You had to do things the right way and do them real safe. Maybe life works that way a little too, just like that. You know, we all have summers, times when things aren't going good, times when we've got a little extra. You know, times when people we love are still sitting around the table. And when you're living in one of those seasons, it's easy to think summer will last forever, but it doesn't. Winter comes to everybody in one form or another. There are lean years, and there are things we lose. And sometimes, just like a garden, life just doesn't give us everything we were counting on. You know, but you don't throw it away, the whole harvest, because one thing didn't grow. You look right at what you still got. You appreciate it and you make the best of it. Maybe that's what old mason jars were teaching us all along. Make the most of the good seasons while you got them. Save a little money when you got a little extra. Spend time with people you love while they're still sitting around the table. Listen when somebody older and wiser is trying to have something to teach you. Make memories while you've got the good chance. Because you can't just stop winter from coming, but you can decide what you carry into it. All those years ago, I thought, we were just putting food in jars. Now I think that we're doing something more. We were taking the best of the summer gave us and putting it in, the work to preserve it and saving a little of it for the cold days we knew would eventually come. Maybe we ought to do the same thing about life. Hold on to a little wisdom, put away a little something for tomorrow, make a few good memories, and appreciate whatever grows in the garden. Even when the harvest isn't perfect, because summer doesn't last forever. But if you use the good seasons wisely, you just might put enough summer in a mason jar to help carry you through the whole winter. This is Mark Morgan, folks, and this has been another Front Porch lesson. Until next time, remember, the old ways may seem simple, but sometimes they have plenty to teach us. So finish that cup of coffee, take care of yourself, and take care of each other, and I'll see you next time right here on the Front Porch.